everybody. Hello. Welcome to the second legislative breakfast in the 2024 series here at the East Side. If you haven't noticed, the East Side has quite the spread here. And because we don't have a sponsor this week, we do ask everyone to throw $5 in the basket as a contribution for the food. So please help us with that. And the East Side, again, did an amazing job with this food out here this morning. So, yes. As I'm told, $5 is a bargain. Well, today we will have Senators Russ, Ingalls, and Senator Bobby Starr and Representative Mark Higley. I'd like to put a special thanks to Senator Russ Ingalls for coming in on a moment's notice, as Representative David Templeman was unable to make it today. Special thanks to the members of the media and NEK-TV for broadcasting it. It will be live on YouTube and Facebook also, should anyone want to see it. And again, for letting me watch it, so I realized I use the word a lot when I speak, and I'll try not to do that this time. I don't know if you'll have enough numbers for that. Channel 10? Channel 1078 on the TV finagled device that we all use. Okay? So we will begin, and as we always begin, we go by seniority. So Senator Bobby Starr, he's been in since 1975, in the Senate since 2005. He covers the Orleans district, which is Jay, Westfield, Montgomery, Lowell, Troy, Newport, Coventry, Irisburg, Albany, Craftsbury, Greensboro, Glover, Barton, Brownington, Charleston, Westmore, Sutton, Burke, and Newark. So, thank you again, and Senator Starr, thank you.
Well, Dan, you rattled those towns off pretty quick. Yeah. And anyways, for such a snowy, wintry morning, which is always good to have in the winter, it's a pleasure to be here with you folks. I guess probably you realize or know that I chair the Senate Ag Committee in the mornings in Montpelier, and in the afternoons sit on the Senate Appropriations Committee. And there usually is not a whole lot of dull time down there, serving on two committees, and both of them being pretty important to our district as well as to the people of the state of Vermont. In Ag, we've been working on the Right to Farm bill, which is a 20-odd-year-old bill that needs to be updated, and because people keep moving closer to the farms because there's getting to be fewer farms, and they're having trouble. Farmers have trouble, not all the time, but occasionally, they spread that stuff that smells like Vermont does in the summer. And, the tractors are bigger and the equipment is bigger, so they have issues. And to do their work, they have to have that equipment and things. Right to repair law is an issue that we've been working on in there. So these new tractors and this new equipment's all electronically controlled, and some of the manufacturers are trying to, they want the equipment to go back to the garage to be fixed, and that usually works, but what happens is a lot of these projects that farmers work on, it doesn't matter what day of the week it happens to be, the sun shining and stuff, so they're working Saturdays and Sundays and holidays, and if something, little thing breaks, the dealership has usually one person that works, but there's never enough people that work to get out there and get it fixed and get them back on cropping or the manure spreading or whatever it is they're doing. So we're working on trying to get the manufacturers to supply them with a diagnostic computer machine, and a lot of times they could fix up their own stuff. Another issue, getting away from the farm a little bit, we've been working with the other New England states on an issue called New England Feeding New England. And as we saw the shortages during the pandemic and couldn't get stuff, we got that all going. Well, it was actually prior to that, and in the pandemic we got started, but this last couple of years it's been moving forward. And the theme of it is we've got like 17 million people living here in New England, and Vermont and Maine have an ample growing space to grow the food, but we've got to get it all set up and to get it distributed to southern New England where our people all live. So we found out through looking at all this stuff that New England spends about $190 billion a year on food, and we're only doing about 16%. So there's a lot of room there to keep our money at home and pay our people to grow the food and not have to have it trucked in from the far west. And so that it's a good project. We just gotta get it going. And so anyways, that's where we are with that. I think Kenny had an article in the paper that we should be doing more for our farmers. And I just want, I'm not beating on you or anything, but this last year we spent $5.9 million to help the organic farms, the small guys that took a big hit in their milk price. And then the other day in the supplemental budget, we put an additional, there's 100 of them. And we missed the money, so 4 didn't get paid. Because the project was set, when we set it up, it was a first come, first serve. And the last 4, there wasn't any money left, so they got put on hold. Well, the other day when we did the supplemental budget, we put the extra 140 or 50,000 in to pay those last 4. So we did that to help them. And the conventional guys, they got about 27 million through the Dairy Margin Protection Program. So, they got a pretty good shot in the arm as well. So, we have to divide the money up so it's fair to everybody. And I felt we did pretty good, helping them out with that money, because the milk prices are, they're set by the federal government, and the federal government don't seem to, you all know what goes on in Washington. It isn't anything to call home about, that's for sure. But the feds, there's lobbyists down there that make more than, one of them makes more than all of us combined. that are around that Capitol all the time, lobbying for their companies not to have to pay their fair share. And I'd say that that's what's happened to our milk business, because the price is the same today, might even be lower today than it was 20 years ago. And we all know what's happened to our pricing. So anyways, we try to help our farmers all we can, and we're a small state with a small budget, and you know, we do the best we can by them. Another issue that I just wanted to bring up that we're all involved in, I mean us as a group, and is that darn school tax increase. And there probably isn't anybody in the room that hasn't heard about that. And to my knowledge, it wasn't anything that we did that caused that. But, you know, it's not a good situation the way it works, because what happens is we all go to town meeting, and the school board, you know, presents the school budget, and if it sounds reasonable and everything, we pass it. Well, then the bill gets sent to Montpelier, and we're left raising the money to pay all the bills that are sent down. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect between who's spending the money and who's raising the money. And so anyways, but it's up to us to try to fix it. And it isn't an easy fix, because it's hundreds of millions of dollars. But we are working on that. The finance committees, both in the House and the Senate, and hopefully, I mean, none of us can afford a 17 or 15% increase. And what has happened in the meantime is property values have gone up, so your place is worth more, and even if your tax rate stayed the same, your value of your house has gone up, so you're going to pay more taxes. And it's a vicious cycle. And, you know, I spent 21 years on the school board before I ever got, or I guess part of the time I was in Montpelier. But on the school board, I always felt, and I was only there a few years before I became chair, that if this year you had a surplus, you might lower the tax rate a little bit, but you hang on to that money, because next year, if your taxes go up, you've got a little reserve so you can soften the blow, and nobody's tax bill gets totally out of whack. And I'm out of time.
That was such a great line to say.
But anyways, you know, things, in general, things are going a lot slower in Montpelier, because we haven't got those train car loads of money coming in from Washington anymore. And, you know, the budget's going to be tighter, and we've got to think a lot more about spending money. And I think we've got a pretty good crew that watches the money pretty well from up here, and hopefully it won't get totally out of hand. Well, thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Senator Russ Ingalls, and he's been a member since 2019. He serves on the Senate Committee on Institutions and the Senate Committee on Transportation, he's the chair of the Senate Committee on Institutions. So, thank you, Russ.
Well, again, I want to thank everybody for coming. I like the crowds. I like seeing different people as we come, and it's how government's supposed to work. I wasn't going to speak today, but somebody couldn't make it, so I'm going to kind of keep mine brief and maybe give more time to the two fellows that we're planning to present. We are out of money in Montpelier after spending $10 billion of federal money. The reality is struck. Even on good times, before that money was there, it was hard to balance the budget of where it is. This 20% increase is got a lot of people worried about it. I think that before it's all said and done, you can only spend with what you have. I think we'll find a solution, as Senator Starr had said, and we'll get there. And he's absolutely positively right. The legislature doesn't create that rise in cost, but we are stuck with trying to figure out how we're going to do it. And I think for a reasonableness amongst our communities, we should just look back at our school budgets and say that there's no big secret pie hidden in the closet where you can carve out more pieces. It's school budgets raised between 3 and 5%. And when you go back and look at your budgets, I think that's kind of where you got to get to. I know there's a lot of positions that were one-time monies that were filled, but that one-time money's gone, and we're going to have to try to figure out how to button things up. I am very, very concerned about affordability in the state of Vermont. I tend to be a one-trick pony, I feel, at times when I start to think about rural Vermonters. We are very rural up here, but it's not just in this area. Every county has a rural population. I truly believe 75% of Vermonters are paycheck to paycheck, whether they want to believe it or not. And I think about a lot of things, but I think about the folks that built Vermont, the people that worked in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And they were told by the federal government, don't worry, just go to work. We have Social Security for you, and we have Medicaid and Medicare for you, and don't worry about it. You're going to be all set. Well, these folks get up in the morning now, and they get out, and they go sit in their recliner, and they turn the TV on, and at 10 o'clock at night, they go back to bed because they're living on $1,550 a month, two of them, and hopefully one of them doesn't die, so that gets cut in half. And anything that we do down in Montpelier that raises any taxes affects them the most. And I just wonder, how their glory years are going. How are they doing? How are they doing in life? What makes them happy? It certainly isn't creating more tax burden on them when they're already struggling. So it's a huge concern. Everybody deserves to get up in the morning and have optimism about how their day is going to be, and not really have to worry much about how they're going to make it through the week, the month, the year, and be able to live their lives. That group that I've mentioned are a proud bunch. They're not much into asking for money. They've always done it themselves, and the people I'm talking about are the people that kept the factories open and kept the stores open, and the loggers and the farmers, and on and on and on you go. The people that kept buildings going and kept the roads going, the town folk. I mean, we all know who they are. We know they're struggling, and I think it's really our job in Montpelier to make sure that we don't put more burdens on them. Public safety is another big concern for those that that haven't heard. From 6:30 to 8:30 this Thursday at the municipal building, we're going to have a public forum on community safety and policing. We have the state police coming. We have the sheriffs are coming. The Newport City Police Department will be there, and we have the state's attorney's going to be there. And we're going to let them speak about the troubles that they're having and facing, and the threats to our community, what they can do about it, what they can't do about it. But a lot of it's going to be back on the public as far as public awareness and public participation. So I'd like to have everybody come out and have that and put their input into that. It should be a good event, and it should be an eye-opener as far as with the community, as far as the threats that are out there. We have Miss Wright, who unfortunately is a victim of what we are going to talk about, and there's a lot of victims out there. This drug epidemic that we have going on in this state is something that's just unbelievable. I talked to Miss Tatro from Jenna's Promise. It's 5 years ago. Her daughter was overdosed. It was said that her dealer overdosed her because she knew too much. And she was in the State House this last week and spent some time with her. And we asked her about her thoughts on safe injection sites, which a lot of people down at the State House really think that we need. And she says, Russ, she said that really isn't what we really need. So we need more recovery. We need to get these people off of drugs, and we need to not keep on injecting them, whether it's safe or not. We need to get more recovery. And she says, I'm a firm believer as well as we incarcerate these people. She says if they go in to prison an addict, they shouldn't come out an addict. That's time to break the cycle, and that's time to help those people, rehabilitate them, give them the tools that they need to know how to cope and come back out and be drug-free. Nobody has ever been healed from being an addict and said, I wish I hadn't done that. And there's a lot of people that wish that they had the help to do that. So we're kind of working on some of that stuff as well. I could go on a lot longer. I'm not going to. I think I'm going to speak at the next meeting, and I'll have more to say about what we're doing in committees. But thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Senator Ingalls. And now our Representative Mark Higley, who's been in the House since 2009. He represents Orleans-Lamoille District, which is Jay, Westfield, Lowell, Eden, Newport, Coventry, and Irisburg. And he is the ranking member of the House Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs.
Well, thank you and good morning. Glad to see a number of folks here. It's pretty cold. Sounds like tonight's going to be the coldest night of the season coming up. I grabbed my book with all kinds of notes, and wouldn't you know, I didn't grab the book with the notes that I wanted. So if I mess up on some statistics or figures or whatever, you'll have to excuse me. But first, I guess I'd just like to say that I agree with Senator Starr and Senator Ingalls. To me, and it seems like my constituents, affordability is the number one issue that's coming down the pike. I can't tell you the number of folks who've talked about the property tax increases as much as 20% maybe now, $243 million over last year's overall budgets in the education realm. And it's a real concern for me that especially people on fixed incomes and the price of properties as a lister, I've seen it. I've seen properties just up the road from me that we have in for maybe $175,000 going for $400,000. It's just crazy. But anyway, sitting on government operations and military affairs, I just want to go over a few things that we are considering. One of them is an abatement issue. You may remember Barry and Montpelier and other places had quite a bunch of destruction from the floods. We're looking at an abatement process where Board of Abatements can look at a series, let's say a whole section of a street gets flooded out for the same reason. It's the same event. So rather than take into each individual one, they can put them into a class and take them up as a class. They have to come out with the same results, and there's an opportunity for that individual within that street to back out of that class and take it on their own. But that's one thing that we're trying to do to help out these boards of abatement that are with busy. I think after the flood there was as many as 60 in Barry alone abatement requests. The other thing that on the House side, Ways and Means, I believe they're talking about an abatement funding process. Again, the state looking at helping out these cities and towns that are abating these properties. So that money the state's going to try to come up with to help out some of these cities and towns. So that's another issue that's in another committee. We have an ethics bill. We currently have an ethics commissioner. Not a lot of staff, not an in-house attorney. Some concerns there. We're working some things out. They want the municipalities to also follow along and answer to this ethics commissioner. So the executive branch, legislative branch, and municipalities, kind of a common theme. I'm working on that. I'm getting some headway. Some of the concerns that I had was in the bill, somebody who's running for office, like myself, that's self-employed. I would have had to have divulged the name of an individual that I was going to work for that had anything to do with the state or municipality. If I knew that, and I mean, basically all I could say is I didn't know that. And then the other concern that I had was anybody that I worked for that I received over $10,000, I would have to divulge their name. And again, I believe I've gotten that piece out of there for sure. Again, some of the folks that I work for in my area, if they knew that I had to divulge their name, they'd say, I'm sorry, Higley, you're not working for me. Again, some work there on that. Hopefully we can come up with some reasonable compromises. Cannabis bill, I think I mentioned that last time. They want to increase THC content. There's other issues as well. You may have heard of, I believe it's in Essex Junction or Essex. There's a small grower that has a real issue with the neighbors. He's complying with all guidelines around through the Cannabis Control Board. He used to grow hemp. He also has some ducks, but that's come to the forefront in our committee looking at what can we do. And it's a tough one because it falls under agriculture, believe it or not. And anyway, that's another interesting one. We have an animal welfare bill. Seems like every biennium we have an animal welfare bill. I personally think it's a little over the top. I mean, if it's a sense of standards, that's one thing, or if it's enforcement, that's another. We had Fish and Wildlife in. They're the ones now who mainly deal with enforcement. They're more than willing and have taken on kind of a lead role, but of course they need the money. Public safety, this is where this bill would put everything, a big agency in public safety. Public safety came in and said, you know, we can't do it. We're lacking people, you know, show me the money. Agriculture came in, talked about, they have a piece of it, of course, with the state vet and so on. And then the final thing on that was where they were looking for the money, some of the money for this was through a tax on feed dealers. And we heard from the feed dealers that said, you know, that's not where to reach us. So that's ongoing. I guess another couple of things that I am involved in. I'm also on LCAR, so you may remember that there was a number of hearings last fall on trapping and hunting of coyotes with hounds. We did through a 5-to-1 vote, me being the lone no vote. The Fish and Wildlife Department went through with their rules in regards to the new trapping and hunting of coyotes with hounds, which is the most extensive in the country. And of course, there's a lawsuit now against the Fish and Wildlife Board and Department in that regard. But again, the concern is there's a bill, you may have heard of it, S-258 in the Senate. It's looking to reconfigure the Fish and Wildlife Board. Real concern for me there. They're looking at a 12-member board now, 4 appointed by the Speaker, 4 appointed by the Committee on Committees, 4 appointed by the Governor's Office. There's also, I believe, in there provisions right now to ban coyote hunting with hounds, and I've heard that there may even be more loading up of that bill. So a real concern for the sportsman's community. Another one that's important for the sportsman's community is the Salisbury Fish Hatchery. You may remember years ago, the sportsmen's groups decided to approve of an increase in their license fees to keep that facility open. Now it's looked like it's due to be closed. There's an effort down there by a number of us to see where we can come up with some money. It looks like maybe between $400,000 and $500,000 for the next couple of years. It's permitted through Agency of Natural Resources till 2027. And again, as you can imagine, with all this flooding, there's reports out there that we've lost some of our fish in the rivers as much as I think it was 40 to 50%. So more than ever, this Salisbury Fish Hatchery is needed. So we need to do whatever we can do to keep it going. And I think it can. I don't know. Just I've talked to the Secretary of Agency of Natural Resources and others, and I don't know what the push is right now. Right now, they say it's because they've got slots for the people that work there. But again, there's differing reports on that, and that's not necessarily the case. So we need to get to the bottom of that. I guess just one more thing that I'd like to mention is a few years ago we set up what was called the Youth Council. And I was on the committee when we did it. I didn't support it initially, but I got a piece in there. I got a piece in there to say that along with all these other things, whether it's racial equity, climate change, all these other categories that these subcommittees of youth are going to look at, I said I want them to look at the rural area and what it takes to keep Vermont in rural activities regarding hunting and fishing, logging, farming, you name it. And I was pretty disappointed when the Youth Council report came back. They had talked about how they wanted a mandatory class on climate change. They wanted a resolution by the legislature to allow 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote across the state. They wanted speed limits on all roads reduced to help out with animals being hit by vehicles. They wanted more pay for teachers and staff. And the one little thing that they had under the piece that I got in there was they wanted to encourage development in urban areas to keep the rural areas rural. So again, pretty concerning because again, it's just kind of a extension of the agenda by the majority down in Montpelier, and I'm sorry for that. I was hoping that there could be more folks in the rural areas that would have input into things that are interesting to the rural folks and something that can help out our rural areas and keep things going. But I think it's tragic today that we have so many youth that come in that are so discouraged with climate change and the end of the world's coming and you know, racial equity issues and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sorry to see, sure, be involved and do what you can do, but don't get to the point where you're so disappointed and discouraged that, you know, there's enough other things out there to be discouraged about and bring yourself down. And we really need to encourage these kids that there's a lot out there to do and, yeah, be happy with. So anyway, I'll leave it there, I guess, but yeah, hopefully I can answer questions as they come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Higley. Just send the young people here, and they will be hit with a dose of optimism on the future. So, thank you. A couple notes. Again, the breakfast is excellent. If you haven't had it, there's a $5 bucket in there. And thanks again to the East Side for this amazing food. Our next meeting will be March 11th. Right now we have Senator Russ Ingalls and Catherine Sims scheduled, and because of the representation shift with the last adjustment, we do have an open spot, so I'll be sending an email out if anyone else would like to attend that one in the open spot. Feel free. And it will be sponsored by Fred's Energy. Now, this is a point where we open up to questions. We have people come up and stand on the corner and come up to the microphone and ask your question. We ask that you give just a couple sentence context to present the question and then ask the question. So if anyone would like to come up and start, it's always challenging to get the first person to go. So we'll be very nice to you if you want to go. Okay. So now's the first one. If anyone else would like to get in line, they can do it at the...
Ken Wells, Brownington. Sorry about the voice. About 10 years ago, we knocked down the block in Newport. Is the receivership blocking all attempts to bring a project to the block? Is there anything state reps can do? And what efforts have been made by state reps to bring business to the Main Street? Or do you have the power to influence decisions regarding that open block?
Senator Starr.
Thank you, Ken. Good question. What we've been working on is trying to get the receiver and NVDA hooked up to transfer the property to NVDA and then help the city get a developer through our regional development agency working with the city to get this to come about. And I don't really know if the receiver is holding that up or not, but I would think that, that lawsuit's been over for quite some time. I would hope and think that that would be coming to an end and be moving forward. But I personally, I feel that, that block should be built with commercial space and maybe some residential way up or whatever, but it should be a commercially built place. And I mean, there's been talk, the court system, they all got brand new fancy buildings, or most of them, and they'd love to put a courthouse there, but personally, I don't think we need another state-owned building on Main Street. It should be for all of us, and it should be commercial. So I'll leave it at that, and maybe Senator Ingalls has more on that because he works in the committee that deals with that stuff. Thank you.
Senator Ingalls.
Great question. I tell you what, it's not going to go in there is a courthouse. I've made that very clear with the state. They're very well aware. They were trying to negotiate in that, and I said no, the courthouse is not going to go in there. That is, as chair of institutions, I am in charge of that. We are being tasked with putting up a new courthouse, but working with the mayor and hopefully the new folks that come on board. We'll find a way maybe to keep the courthouse where it is, combine the two, and that way we don't have to take valuable city land and do that. So that's something to come. I think the real question as far as what has been the holdup, yes, the receivership, they have wanted like $1.5 million for that, and that's just too much to do that. But I think, just being honest, it was politics from the past. I think the new mayor is going to breathe new life into that project, and I had discussions with Mayor Manette and the manager, Laura Dolgan, before. We had some ideas, and just putting out there, just being honest with you, the ideas that I had, they called the state on me and said I had a conflict of interest because I had some really good ideas about going on in there. So we're going to get past all of that. We're very focused as far as bringing something to that, but as Senator Starr said, it needs to be something commercial. It needs to be, we have the best jewel of Main Street. We're not going to put a non-tax revenue building in there. And we're going to make sure that it's something that's going to be there for years to come. I'm very optimistic about the mayor and the new elections that will come, and I think working together we'll have something in there that's viable. But yeah, the receivership, some past politics, but we're moving forward. Yeah.
Have you ever considered exclusionary zoning in Newport? When we say
Yeah.
it should be made so that
Right.
Well, just a second. Well, after Representative Higley goes, I'll give you a chance to come to ask your question to all of them so they can all answer it. Is that okay?
yeah, I just don't
Thank you. Don't. Mark Higley. Oh, he's all set. So now you can come up and ask your question. Thanks.
don't even need a microphone. I was wondering if you ever considered, when you say it should be on Main Street, if we put inclusionary zoning in our local planning, then we would get state and federal to comply with it. I was on a committee in Heinsberg when we just had a vision of what Heinsberg could be. And we made Heinsberg a designated village center. We went through 7 agencies of transportation to get traffic calming on 116. We redesigned Silver Street so people coming from Addison County could get into Chittenden County. We put sidewalks in from CVU into town, and then we had affordable housing and whatever. We had community forum. What did people want? We brought that all. And it's really, the question is, have you ever considered using a tactic of inclusionary zoning so we don't say it should be affordable housing in in Newport? It will be. It will happen because we put that into our zoning.
Can you state your name and town, please?
Donna Constantino, Newport, thank you.
Senator Starr.
I would expect, and I don't know because I'm not a member of Newport City, I don't live there, but I would expect their zoning, that is commercial property. And I know that was the intention of way back when they tore the old block down, that it was be commercial and maybe with some spotty dwellings way up in the building. And I certainly don't know about Heinsberg. But I think that question should be asked to the city about the zoning and maybe not one of us.
Senator Ingalls.
So I'll just tell you what my vision was, and I had a group of people who were very interested in that building. One of them was, so I just did a kind of an informal, I went around and I talked to some local developers and people who liked projects. And kind of what we thought about is, yeah, if they wanted a courthouse, we would build them a courthouse with a 99-year lease, and we'd put it on the back corner of it. We'd build them whatever they wanted with a 99-year lease, and that would allow them enough monies to build a project forward. And the project we had envisioned was, and again, very, very informal talks, very, very, very informal talks, but it's how it starts. It's really how it gets going. So we were thinking to make sure that we didn't exacerbate a parking problem, two lower levels of parking garages, storefronts, definitely storefronts on the main level, a couple levels of office space, and then above that, a couple levels of affordable condominium-style housing, but market-based affordable housing, not a wish list of, oh yeah, let's just put something fancy in there, but just to be able to attract, people who wanted to live downtown, wanted to walk to everything, because we certainly know we have all the services there. You can live in Newport without a vehicle and do everything you want to do within walking distance. And then on top of that, we were thinking about a restaurant, and then on the very top, high enough to where it would look down the lake, a green space up there for the people that were in the building in itself, especially the people that were in the condominium based, and possibly a restaurant up there to be a capture point. I know that when I do go on vacation once in a while, I've actually a 9-year memory come up yesterday where I was in Florida and I was on top of this rooftop restaurant and the view was phenomenal and it was very, very captivating. So those are the type of ideas, but again, Senator Starr says it right correctly. I mean, it's up to the city when it's all said and done, but those are the visionary things that you can have if you dare to move forward. But you need to have community response. You need to have the political response, and you need to have the people who have the funding who are willing to put a project forward. And it's something that has to work. It has to be able to turn, or then it goes into bankruptcy, and we don't want that. So,
Representative Higley.
Just real quick, I don't know a lot about this, but I do know that whether it's as a select board member at one point or as you may be reading in the paper now about City Marketplace over in Burlington, things always start out in a good way or a way that is supported in regards to affordable housing. And you may have heard over there in Burlington where now they're going to cut down on the number of affordable housing apartments and put in more hotel units because the numbers don't add up. And I think we have to be careful of that. It seems to always happen, whether there's a project, a housing project, so many so-called affordable housing units, they get halfway through the project and say, we can't finish this way, so we have to cut down the number of affordable housing projects and put in some more higher-end houses. So just to be aware of that, I've seen it time and time again, and it's something to be cautious of.
I don't usually, but I'll just add on a brief thing. There's a Downtown Development Corporation, which has to do with the Newport's downtown designation, which allows them for special tax breaks into development, and that organization is actively working towards that, and I'll give you contact information. Okay. Yeah. The next question?
Hi, I'm Ann Chiarello. I live in Newport, and I know I've raised this issue before, but I need to bring it to the forefront every 3 or 4 months. There was an article a couple of months ago in 7 Days that was talking about the children, the mentally ill children, and where they're being put in Vermont. And the fact that Vermonters just deny, basically, we all think everything is a bit rosy, and we don't admit that those children are not being well cared for. So the question is, how do we prioritize above all other issues where these children are being sent out of state, which is inappropriate, and the building of a facility with people who can take care of these children appropriately, as opposed to leaving them naked and cold in some cell somewhere?
Thank you for the question. Senator Starr.
Yes, thank you for the question. The issue at hand is we had Woodside over in Winooski where these children or young people were housed, but it wasn't a good situation there. And it kept getting worse and worse. And so we knew that couldn't continue. So in the meantime, we decided to close that and build a new place. And that's been tied up in court for a couple of years, and it should be in Newberry, Vermont. Going to build a new facility there. It was out away from the village on a large parcel of land run by an organization that's trained in taking care of troubled youth. And we're still waiting for that to get resolved because Newberry keeps coming up with excuses why it shouldn't be built in their town. I mean, I don't know why. Newberry's, it's no different than any other town in Vermont as far as I'm concerned. And it wouldn't matter where it was, but we had these people that would come there. They owned the property, and I think they would do a good job taking care of our young people and not have to send them out of state to facilities.
Senator Ingalls.
Have you ever heard the word NIMBY? Not in my backyard. And that's what's going on. We have at least 3 sites right now that we are working on. Newberry, we have one in St. Albans, and we're working on one in Waterbury. And you're absolutely positively right. These kids are being housed in, Newport City, down below, they have them down there. They're in the hospital rooms. They're everywhere where they need not be. We just need to quit fighting. We need to get there. Again, in my committee, those are buildings that we want to build. We want to get there. The negotiations with the towns are absolutely positively tough. In the meanwhile, and it's not the solution, because some of these kids are, in a violent nature, and but in the interim, we are starting to see more sites like the one that we have up here, that Kelsey Stavish is getting put up there, so at least they can go and they can have communications and they can get talk down from a bad day. We do need more mental health. We really do. Who would have thought that this pandemic would have done what it would have done to a lot of people, especially our youth? This thing of isolation is just not what it's supposed to be. We need to make sure we never repeat the things of the past. We're losing a whole generation of our youth, and we're losing a lot of people that were on the edge on the workforce. I of course, I'm not a doctor. Don't even play one on TV. And but I have a couple people now that I held in the highest regard. kind of people like I talked about earlier, people just getting up, going to work every day and doing it and playing a big part. And they're reaching out to me now, and they are just they are troubled. They are troubled, and it's heartbreaking. And we get them the services that we can get. But yes, you know what? Every 4 months, you keep the pressure on. We need it. We really do. So thank you for doing that.
Representative Higley?
I have a little different take on the Newberry facility. I have a fellow rep who's from Newberry and represents that area, and I believe they have some legitimate concerns. I don't understand why we closed down a facility before we had something else ready to go. That to me was totally inappropriate. I certainly know from firsthand experience that I have a son that blew out of graded school, went to Turning Points, blew out of there, went to the Baird Center, blew out of there, went to the Brattleboro Retreat, blew out of there, and ended up in a institution in Effingham Falls, New Hampshire, for a year and a half. So it's pretty discouraging, as you said, that there's not a facility in Vermont that can take care of these folks. It was a distance to travel. We certainly did it, but once he came back, the Northeast Kingdom Human Services Agency did step up and did their best and to get him in his own apartment, and with a certain diagnosis has certainly helped. So again, I'm not sure of the overall answer, but I'm not convinced that Newberry was the right place either. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Higley. Any other questions? If we give everyone a chance to go through once, but if there's no other questions, we will allow people who have asked questions to do follow-up questions at this point. So are there any follow-up questions by anybody or regular questions? Question? Okay. Here's a question. Oh,
Janine Young, Craftsbury. I was just wondering how the bill that, I don't remember the number, but there's a bill in legislature that would recognize an unborn baby that was killed, say in an accident or by violence, that the case a few years ago where a woman was, I think, 7 months pregnant with twins. She was hit by a impaired driver. She lost both her twins, and there were no fatalities. That considered, because there was no law protecting those babies. Does anybody know where that status is of that bill? Last I knew it was just on the wall.
Representative Higley.
So I believe it's a bill in the House, and I'm sure it's probably hanging on the wall. I haven't heard that there's been any discussion or opportunity to take that bill up, and there's certainly a number of bills like that that are out there that I wish would be. Thank you.
So again, thank you for that question. Did you have?
No, just if nobody else had a question, I'd like to introduce some more information.
So we will allow Representative Higley a few moments, and if anyone does come up with a question during the time, just raise your hand, and we'll acknowledge you later. Okay?
No, I appreciate it, and you know there is so much that's going on down there, and I addressed some of the stuff in our committee, but you know there's another issue down there that's.
Mark, sorry, because you're pretty well versed on it. Can you talk about S5 and the findings that came back on this? Are you familiar with them?
A little bit, yeah. So as Senator Ingalls said, S5, it appears that the department that came back that was supposed to come up with the guidelines around that whole credit scheme and everything hasn't done it yet, and they were looking for a way for, is my understanding, where the funds were to come from to put together this proposal, and now it looks like a group wants it to come from the general fund. Initially, I think they were even talking about it coming from a fuel tax. So again, it's not a good thing. It's a real concern out there that they don't even have that credit scheme drafted yet as to what it might be. That's my understanding as far as I know on that. The other one that I was going to mention too was there's a renewable energy proposal in environment and energy right now that is a real concern. It appears that our Joint Fiscal Office had put out information in regards to they want to move the date for 100% renewables up to 2 years, so from 2032 to 2030. And it looks like that's going to cost the ratepayers about $1 billion. And from what my understanding of what I've just recently read and stuff is that information, even from the Joint Fiscal Office, isn't even on their website anymore. The Ways and Means Committee chair talked about how we're only going to look at a very small piece of this, which is a revenue loss piece, which was, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that was it. Where somebody has to understand, and actually your electric co-ops and so on have been down there testifying too. I talked to Andrea Cohen from Vermont Electric Co-op, who was willing to testify, and she says it's just unbelievable to her that there's this $1 million of rate increase for ratepayers for this move up 2 years. So another concerning issue for folks out there. And somebody down there needs to understand and represent the ratepayers in this and stop with, in my mind, this foolishness of renewable energy guidelines and climate change goals that are going to kill us. I mean, just with the flooding, we're talking millions and millions of dollars too, and we have to start understanding that we can't do both, or at least we should do some on the side of helping out in regards to efficiencies, EVs, all that sort of stuff. But again, if we're going to start spending hundreds of millions of dollars on rebuilding our infrastructure, there's only a few of us folks here in the state, and there's not, they talk about every bill down there, we're going to fund another source of revenue. Guess what? That source of revenue is all coming back on you, whether it's sales tax, whether it's rooms and meals, whether you name it, Anyway, a big concern for me.
Yeah, Senator Ingalls.
So a little bit more on S5, the clean heat standard. What had happened is they had a check back situation where they knew they didn't have the votes to pass it the last session, so they put a check back in, and they were supposed to come up with some findings, and they're also supposed to set these programs up, and so in 2025 this bill would come back to the legislature. It would go all to the committees of jurisdiction. They would have their say on the matter. Then it would come to the House for a vote, the Senate for a vote, and then the governor would have a chance to approve or override or veto it. They burned through $1.5 million and they haven't got anywhere. The $1.5 million that was appropriated for them to get to this level, it's just not there. And they're no further closer to it. But one of the things that has been discovered is that it is just a scheme that's not going to work. I mean, they've said we need more time with this. Everything that's been proposed is wrong. We are just going to burn through, just tons of money just to find out what the structure that they have proposed isn't going to work. So what's that mean? That means that not only are they going to have to charge, at least 70 cents, and we all know it's going to be more than 70 cents, at least 70 cents on heating fuel. They're going to have to go to all fuels. They're going to have to go to the gasoline, the diesels, the propane. They're going to have to go with everything. Which is, again, it gets back to my affordability question and me thinking about those folks sitting at home making $1,550 a month and where that money is going to come from. So, sometimes we get up here and we beat a drum. Sometimes we beat a drum. And the reason why we have to do that is because when you see the news on WCAX or whatever, they'll make it sound like this bill comes out and it's all great. It's all rosy. And they'll have the people on there and they talk and it's good and oh my goodness gracious, yes. You'll notice, and please do notice, don't just take my word for it, they never have anybody from the other side talking about the harm that it can cause Vermonters. And so you're not getting the story of it. And so we come and we have to tell you the story, or at least make the point of it so that you're aware. This S5, this clean heat standard, is going to come back in 2025, a new election cycle. You're going to really, really, really want to pay attention to that. That is, we've already know again, and that the news won't report it, but we see it. We see the report. It is a flawed system. It's a flawed idea. It's flawed right from the start. But they're going to keep on going with it, which means that you're going to get a flawed process that's only going to cost you a lot of money, and it's not going to solve any problems. This is what we really have to believe. And you really have to know, 640,000 people cannot change climate. They can't. But I get it. We want to leave the world in a better place, and we deserve to leave the world in a better place. We got to do a good job. But why rush in 5 years and spending $700 million a year is what we're spending right now, because that's what we're spending, about $700 million a year, and we're not making a difference. Let's slow down. Let's put a real plan in there. Let's help let's get a plan out there so we can get the infrastructure built, so we can get more power to come here, so we can do a better job. And let's take $350 million of that money that we're just blowing out the hole, and let's put that back into our economy so that we can help Vermonters. We can get rural transit out into the far reaches of all corners of the state. We can get these facilities built, these mental health facilities built. We can do that. We can do that without raising another tax. As Representative Higley said, they're down there trying to find new revenues, trying to find new ways to come up with a scheme to get more money out of you. We don't have to raise another dime to make our state very, very great and to take care of the people that we have. So, again, sorry for the ramble.
Thank you, Senator Ingalls. Again, we've still got a few more minutes, so if anyone would like to ask a question. Oh, Senator Starr. I'm sure he can fill the time. Just kidding.
I'll kill a little time. This fuel and heat efficiency and all that stuff, and most of you know I ran big trucks all my life. And back in the 90s, I bought all new trucks. And, my shop burnt and burned everything, so I had to start all over again. And there wasn't any insurance on any of that stuff. But anyways, I bought these new Kenworth trucks for $65,000 each. Got 6.5 miles to a gallon with those instead of 5 that the old trucks got. And everything, the fuel savings paid half the payment on those trucks. Well, you turn the clock ahead 20 years, and so my son, he runs that show now, and he buys new Kenworth trucks. They're $250,000. And it's got all this anti-pollution stuff that I don't know what it does, but no pollution goes out, and gets 5 miles to a gallon with the trucks. So he's losing almost 20% in fuel efficiency with these new trucks that cost $250,000 that do the same work as those trucks back in the 90s did, getting 6.5 miles to a gallon. So we've really come ahead a long ways with all this good stuff. But anyways, getting back to the point here, the clean heat standards, been a boondoggle from the day go. We should be taking care of our hospitals and things that we really, really make a difference here. And one thing that I'm doing down there that doesn't have anything to do with ag is we're having a major problem with literacy. Our children are really hurting with, and if years that I've spent in education know very well that if a child can't read by the time they get to the 3rd grade, they're really headed in the wrong direction. And so last summer, I spent quite a lot of time looking at literacy and how to improve it, and ran onto this Dolly Parton literacy imagination library. And so I dug into that pretty well, and Dolly Parton provides books age appropriate from birth through 4 years old. And they send the books, they do all that, and it costs about $24 to $26 a child a year for mailing and handling and miscellaneous costs. And so I did put a bill in to promote that this session here. And we, the Education Committee, where that's going to be, where it is right now, had a public hearing this past week, and it went very well. I think that the bill will come out of there with a 5-0 vote, but it's a very small amount of money for quite a, I mean, the test scores that these children are improving, that if they go through this program with their books, you know, it's anywhere from 8 to 12% better than kids that don't have the books. And so I think, you know, that's a way to help our young people be able to learn and read and understand the English language as we move forward. And I'm hoping that education will vote that bill out, hopefully this week or next. It's a committee bill, because if you know what goes on down there in Montpelier, an individual bill, it goes okay, but if you can get it to be a committee bill, it goes much better. And so the chair of education laid it into a committee bill, so it's part of an overall literacy bill, and hopefully we'll get that over to the House before town meeting so they can look at it and get it through this session. So, thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Senator Starr. Last call for a quick question. Okay. We're going to get to leave early then today, a whole 5 minutes. But before I go again, reminder, the next breakfast is March 11th. Right now scheduled are Senator Russ Ingalls and Representative Catherine Sims, and sponsor will be Fred's Energy. And again, April 1st will be the legislative breakfast after. We don't have a sponsor for that one, so if you know anyone who would like to sponsor it, please let me know. Again, I'd like to thank the East Side for the great breakfast, everyone for coming, especially the representatives and senators and any members of the media that are here, and NEK-TV for doing an amazing job as always. So that concludes the second legislative breakfast in the series this year. Thank you. Wow.